Okay, our next speaker is Jeffrey Hansler. Jeffrey Hansler is managing partner for the Oxford Company. He assists the organization in mastering the challenges in their particular marketplace. He is an expert at sharing insight about persuasive communication, which can be used in both business and other impersonal situations. Jeffrey has been working with clients in the industrial and construction industry since 1992, and with the UA since 2009. He will have some interesting thoughts and strategies to share with us, based not only on his own expertise, but also on his expertise working with UA locals in southeastern United States. So, Jeffrey, please welcome him. Oh, right behind me.
Sorry, snuck up on you. Where's the remote mouse?
I think it's...
Huh? Which one do I hit? Okay. Next. Okay. What are you willing to do to get what you want? It's an important question regarding change, and it's an important question for what I'm going to talk about today. Thank you, Billy, for the introduction. Standing behind a podium is a little different for me. Normally I'm out in the audience. What I want to talk to you today is about 3 points. Before I talk to you about the 3 points, we came onto this project working in Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina because John Lindstrom saw me speaking at a conference with F. Kurt. And he liked what he heard. So what I'm going to talk to you today is about change, the process of change, and freedom. Change is difficult. Yesterday, at tripartite meetings before, at pipe trade meetings, building trade meetings, everybody talks about change. They make it sound like it's easy, like it's something that just happens magically. Change is difficult. One of the reasons change is difficult is because there's a lot of fear associated with change. You know, why test fate? Why change? Things are going okay, we can just deal with them. You know, it's like a sign goes off in your head, thin ice. And not only do we avoid change, we think people that go out onto the thin ice that are going to deal with change, that there's something wrong with them, they're crazy. Not only that, when trying to change an organization, people so want to prove that those people shouldn't be creating change, they actually interfere with it. They try and kill change. They try and throw resources against it. They fight it. Friendships are lost over this. So, you had owners, contractors, union, 3 powerful organizations. You had hundreds of millions of dollars, and you had hundreds of thousands of man-hours, and then ask organizations there to change. And think of the resistance to change that's going on. It's one of the most difficult things to do. For change to occur within an organization, there must be an enormous amount of pain. So my question to you is, are you in enough pain? Market share from 1970 to 2011 dropping from 84% to 35%. Is that enough pain? Keystone being delayed extra months. Is that enough pain? Man-hours back. Politicians getting involved. John Q. Public throwing demonstrations talking about things they don't know about. Is that enough pain? I challenge you because it may not be enough pain yet. Besides the pain, if you want to create change, you need a plan, and that plan has to have accountability built into it. And that's an important word that I want to talk about as we go on. Accountability is critical because I've heard of a lot of good plans that have been talked about for the last 10, 15 years, and they're being slow to be implemented. Good plans like the VIP program. Why is it not getting the traction it needs? And there needs to be accountability in that process of change. And there also has to be internal champions. It's very important to know that outside organizations can only guide change. They can't create the change. The change must come from you. 2 of those internal champions are John Lindstrom and Rick Oliver, UA representatives. They've got this project started, and they've kept this project alive, with all those people afraid of change trying to kill it. Change and innovation are not the same thing. Understand, this is innovation. Innovation is making do with what you've got. Change is getting something you want. We can innovate. Industry can innovate, or we can make our nukes better, we can make our power plants better, we can do things like that. We can tie green into them. We can even make them look a little prettier. Those are innovation. The question is, can we change? Can we do something different? Can we come up with a new concept? Can we develop a power plant that looks something like this? Or maybe these are both industrial designs, conceptual designs for power plants of the future. This power plant is in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's supposed to go up in 2016. They don't have any hills there, so they decided to build a ski resort around the power plant. That's change. So if we change our thoughts, then we can change how we communicate. If we change the way we communicate, then we can also change our thoughts. And if we change the way we think, we can drive innovation change rather than resist it. Instead of looking at outside resistance as the enemy, sometimes we have to embrace it. And you embrace it through your communication. And through your communication, you get the resources to adapt and give them what they want. So my question to you is, what have you changed recently? What is true change for your organization? I need your help here, a little audience participation. I need your help with something you already know. So my question to you is, if you firmly believe, and here's the audience participation part, if you firmly believe that relationships are critical to business, please stand up. Thank you. Please be seated. And just to do a little double check here. Yeah. Just do a little double check here. If you do not believe that relationships are critical to business and your organization, please stand now. As you can see, no one is standing. So my question to you is, if relationships are so important to business and your organization's success, why do you constantly use words that destroy relationships? Daniel Pink says that business and organizations are so far behind science, it's a crime. The science for linguistics and language and the impact of language has been around for close to 100 years. I'm going to give you a very, very simple example. If I say to you, I think you're doing a great job, but what are you waiting for? All the negative. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You see, I've just said we're going to fight with one single word. What I want to tell you is, but is the single most expensive word in the English language. And yet even today and yesterday and at every meeting I've heard, I hear but. I hear but in conversations in the hall. I hear but in language up on the podium. I hear but all over. Why? Because it's a habit word. Because we don't feel that our communication is important enough to create change. Now, if I say to you, I think you're great, and here are the things I want to talk about, I've accepted your good things, and now I want to transition to things to improve. When our politicians stand up and say, we want the Keystone Pipeline to go through, but we know there are environmental issues, you've just created an enemy with the environmentalists. If you say, we want the Keystone Pipeline to go through, and we're going to address the environmental issues, it's a completely different message. How important is this? Well, in our organization, we feel 100% compliance is the only acceptable answer. It means if you say, but, we need you to change that. We need you to change it to an and we're going to call you on it, and we're going to check you on it. Do you want to change enough? Are you tired? Do you have enough pain to change? And some of you are saying, well, I've heard this before. Well, shame on you. If you've heard this before and you haven't changed it, what's stopping you? So let's talk about the process of change. Before we do, though, I got to tell you, I've been working in the Southeast, and I dropped into a few churches, and they all say amen. You know, it's a lot different than California. So just to hear the audience and keep you alive, can I hear an amen? Amen. You know, I know this isn't church. There's an awful lot more drinking that goes on. We need a bigger amen. So, can I have an amen? Amen? All right, hang on to that. Hang on to that. Change begins with an idea. Man, very good. And that idea comes from someone we trust. So who do you trust? If you want to start changing things, can you write down 3 individuals in the organizations involved in this tripartite meeting that trust you out of each of the organizations? Or more importantly, let's ask this question. Who trusts you? What if I was to tell you that your communication affects how people feel about you, whether they trust you or don't? You know, it's a proven scientific fact. It does. How you communicate affects how people think about you. This is a model for communication. This is a model of trust. This is a model of building relationships. That triangle stands for change. And if you want to create change in somebody's mind, you want to change their thinking, they have to trust you. Nothing happens until they trust you, no matter how much you argue what you want to argue. Well, how do you build trust? Well, you have to demonstrate understanding with your language. That's what "and" is all about. And demonstrates understanding. I understand you have a different viewpoint than me, and we can talk about some other things. But destroys understanding, which is why it destroys trust and destroys relationships. Look, this is all scientifically based. A quick biology lesson. The neocortex understands language and logic. That's a new part of the brain. Unfortunately, the neocortex doesn't make a single decision in life. All decisions are made out of the limbic system, that ancient part of our brain that said fight or run. The limbic system can only make a binary decision, either yes or no, do or don't do, like or not like, believe or not believe. So how does the neocortex communicate with the limbic system that doesn't understand language or logic? It sends a chemical message down, and that chemical message is tied to the words you use. And when you say "but," you say "no." And you send a message that says, let's fight, not work together. And when you say "and," you send a message that says, we can partner, we can be friends, you can put your sword away, we can join, and we can talk about things. Look, we had a conference. We had a conference in Silver Springs, and it was part of this program that we're running in the Southeast. And before the program came, we talked about these 3 things up here. I'm going to get to them in a minute. Before that program, though, Billy Hite gave his time, Steve Kelly gave his time, Mark McManus gave his time, Brett McCoy gave his time. You're not Brett. Gave us time. They didn't give us time because of the program. They didn't know anything about the program. They didn't give us time because they know us. They don't. We're outsiders. They gave us time because they trusted 2 internal champions for this change program. They trusted John Lindstrom and Rick Oliver. That trust has been built out because those 2 know how to communicate. They do a process. They have a pattern of communicating that makes a difference. What we talked about in the program is how to change an organization, how to create the changes you want. You have to choose relationship before position, dialogue before title, and you have to be adaptive before being role-based. Now, what's important about all these 3 things is all of them have to be founded in a solid communication plan. If you can't communicate, you can't make these transitions. You can't establish relationships if you're using the wrong process and the wrong words. So what happens if you can't establish a relationship? You go to position. It's one or the other. You know, the position is, I'm union, you're contractor, you're owner. The position is, I'm in charge, you're not. All right? what we need to do to succeed is develop these relationships, and you do that through a communication process. Dialogue before title. People throw all kinds of titles around. I went to the convention. I heard a business manager run down an organizer that was, part of their team because they had talked to another business manager about an issue. Can't do that. Organizers don't talk to business managers. You go through me. It all goes through me. It's all based on title. We've seen foremen not take good ideas from workers in the field because they're the foreman and they have to be in charge. We have to get off those positions and have dialogue. Only to have dialogue, you have to be confident in your communication. You have to spend as much time on your communication as you do on other things. And in terms of an organization, we have to be adaptive. The problem with rule-based organization is the rules are about history. Rule-based organization, make a rule and say we operate in this box and that's all we do. We don't go outside that box. Why? It's safe, it's great, it's wonderful. The trouble is the market has moved on. You know why non-union has made inroads into union? They don't play by the rules. They don't have a rule book to follow. They're adaptive by nature. This organization can be adaptive, and as a matter of fact, it can be the best organization by being adaptive. Here's the process. It's simple. 5 steps. What this process does, and this isn't about educating you on the process, I just want to introduce you to it. It looks simple. It's hard to implement. Why? Because we don't normally think this way, unless we were exposed to it at some point in our past. What this process does is help you pick a target, a firm, definitive, date-oriented target. And with that target, then it helps you evaluate the environment, and from that environment, it helps you analyze the people that are involved that can help move that forward, and it helps you pick the right communication words so that you can appeal to the person that can help you move your project forward. This is the only piece that I've seen missing in your plans. Because to say we want a VIP program is one thing, to get a senator to back you in Atlanta, Georgia, is completely different. The senator won't back you unless he has a conversation that takes his ideas and changes them to the ideas we need them to do. And that happens through a conversation. And at the moment that conversation happens, that may never happen again. If you don't have the tools when you need them, it's too late to go back. If you follow this process, it'll speed up the results. Here's what's interesting. In this industry, measurement is key. Nothing gets done. No power plant gets built. No commercial building gets built until somebody's measured something. Blueprints are made with measurements. Pipe is laid out with measurements. Wells are made. Everything is measured. Are you measuring your communication? Because what this model does is makes it accountable. It makes your communication accountable so that you can learn where you're weak, you can see where you're going wrong, and you can see what you can change for it. Change is hard. Now, as part of this program, I've been invited into situations along with the locals, and we went into a contractor, and I noticed that union labor sat down on one side of the table, and management sat down on the other side of the table, and I thought, we've already set up that we're going to be enemies. So I sat down on the management side of the table. And the person goes, who are you and what are you doing on this side? I said, well, I thought it would improve the conversation. And he said, well, it may improve the conversation, but we like our traditions. Change is hard, even if it's good for you. So how do you measure the success of your conversations? How do you do things differently? This process has been picked up, and there have been 3 champion business managers, internal change agents that have picked this up. They've learned this process and they've applied the process. When we started on this project, we were told we would get kicked out of union halls if we spoke there. We were also told that the members did not want to engage, and we were also told that contractor relationships would be limited because of the collective bargaining process that had to occur at certain timetables. George Head of Local 72, Atlanta, Georgia, brought us into the members. Not only did the members get excited about it, they got excited about signing up for the foreman certification program. All right, because they brought us in. Roger Morgan, Local 630, West Palm Beach, brought us in. Membership has more than doubled, almost tripled in terms of attendance at meetings. And they have now committees, 3 committees involved, actively working on creating a change for the perception of the union in their local, and working on marketing, working on political groups, and working on the standard for excellence. All viable projects. And Skip Howard, Local 421, out of the Carolinas, brought the skills that he learned from this to the negotiation table, and he walked out of there with a good contract with the contractors, for the union, and with better relationships than he walked in there. You follow this process, it'll make a difference in the results you get. So, I asked for an amen before, and now can I get an and? And let's talk about freedom. You can't force someone to change. All you can do is ask them to change. And for this, you've got to be good at asking questions, and this model is based on an interrogative approach. This model is based on finding out information rather than going in and just talking. This model is based on trying to discover what are the key points that we can leverage to take forward. You've got to be good at asking questions. Questions drive change. Questions are what create new ideas. So my question to you is, what are you willing to do to get what you want? Are you willing, and I mean that in the most positive way, are you willing to consider that there's a measurable model out there that'll make a difference in the results? A model that can take everything that you want and change the results to the results you want, conversation by conversation by conversation. This is how you build relationships. Are you willing to choose relationship over position? Are you willing to dialogue instead of dropping a title? Are you willing to be adaptive before being rule-based? Change for a culture that's over 125 years old is going to take a while. Change in the industry working with that organization is going to take a while. We've got champions coming on. J.J. Johnson out 177 in Brunswick, Georgia. Brett Mursky at a 725 in Daytona Beach. Kenny Scott, no, Brett 295. Kenny Scott 725 out of Miami. You know, we've gone up and talked to John Telford and Larry and Steve up in the Canadian group. You know, we ran the process and talked about an important issue for them. We helped raise questions and insights that they could take to the next meeting. This is something we'd love to have the whole organization on. So can I have an and? And are you willing to watch when you say but? Are you willing to stop it and restate it and say and? Are you willing to catch your brother or sister and on, you know, when they say but, and remind them to say and so they can build relationships? And would you be willing to get behind something that's a new idea and a new thought if you thought it can turn the tide, if you thought it could take your programs that you've already got going and make them successful, if you thought it could speed up the process with the president? And by the way, regarding the president, when he ran for candidate, he never said but. And then he got into the office and he got a lot of information and a lot of pushback. And if you'll listen to his speeches on the internet, he says but all the time. So, Billy, next time you see the president, please tell him to use and not but. And with that, I look forward to building more relationships with all of you. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here.
Does anybody have any questions for Jeffrey? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you very much. And because you're local, and I'll mail you the watch. Give me your card.